I've got to tell you about something that completely changed how I look at business, at people, and at leadership. It all started on a random Tuesday morning. I'm Jacob Reed, CEO of a small diner chain. And let me tell you, I had no idea what was really going on under my roof. Everything looked good on paper. We had 13 locations, and everything seemed perfect. But the whispers, the complaints, they were piling up faster than I could ignore them. So, I did what any CEO should do. I decided to see for myself. At first, I thought I was just overthinking it. You know, sometimes the noise gets to you, and you start doubting yourself. People were saying the staff was rude, service was slow, and the turnover rate was through the roof. But every time I asked, the reports from my regional managers told me everything was fine. Well, you can't ignore that gut feeling. Something wasn't right. I'm not the kind of guy who just sits behind a desk. I built this company from the ground up. I wanted to create something special, a family-friendly diner, a place where people felt welcome, where employees felt respected. But over time, I guess I'd gotten too caught up in the business side of things. I stopped listening, stopped looking closely. So, I decided to go undercover. You know, blend in with the staff and see for myself. No fancy suits, no polished look, just me, looking like a regular guy. I grew a scruffy beard, threw on a hoodie and jeans, put on some thick-rimmed glasses. Basically, I looked nothing like the CEO they would have seen on the company website. I figured, it's only for a day. Let's see what's really going on. I picked one of our diners that was a couple hours away from the office. Not close enough that anyone would recognize me, but still part of the family. When I walked in, it was lunchtime. The place was buzzing, but there was a tension in the air that I couldn't shake. It was clean, but not the warm, inviting space I'd imagined when I first started this business. It was a little worn down. The booths were a little faded, the walls a little tired. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't the family vibe I'd always dreamed of. Not by a long shot. A waitress with tired eyes approached me. Her name was Megan, and I'll never forget the way she looked. You could tell she was trying her best to hide her exhaustion, but it was there. You could see it in her eyes. "Hi there, welcome," she said, her voice cheerful, but strained. Something wasn't right. I ordered a coffee. I watched her rush around the diner, juggling orders, refilling drinks, clearing plates. She was running on fumes, but she never let the customers see it. When she came back with my coffee, I asked for a burger and fries. As she scribbled on her notepad, I heard a man's voice boom from the kitchen. "Megan, what's taking so long? You're falling behind again." It was the shift manager, Rick, a short, stocky guy, probably in his 40s, wearing a stained apron. He was barking orders, but not in a way that made you want to jump to action. It was more like a drill sergeant who didn't care about anything but the bottom line. Megan flinched when he yelled at her. Her eyes were wide, but she nodded quickly, trying to hide her frustration. She came back with my burger, apologized for the delay, but there was something about it something in her voice. I could hear the cracks in it, like she was holding back tears. I couldn't ignore it. I didn't come here to just observe, I came to understand. To really understand. As I sat there, eating my meal, I overheard more complaints from other customers. A family at the booth behind me was talking about how long they'd been waiting for their food. A couple of teenagers whispered about how rude Rick had been to Megan earlier. The atmosphere felt off, tense. I could tell it wasn't just the food that was making people uncomfortable, it was the way the staff was being treated. Then it happened. I heard muffled sobbing from the kitchen. At first, I thought I was imagining it. But it wasn't. It was Megan. My stomach turned. I couldn't just sit there anymore. I slid out of my booth and walked toward the kitchen. The door was slightly ajar, and I could see Megan standing there, wiping her eyes with the back of her sleeve. Rick was towering over her, arms crossed, face twisted with frustration. "What's wrong now?" he snapped. "I'm trying my best, okay?" Megan's voice cracked. "I haven't had a break in 6 hours. I'm doing everything I can." Rick didn't care. "If you can't handle the pressure, maybe you're in the wrong job. We don't have time for excuses." I saw red. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This wasn't the company I built. This wasn't what I stood for. I walked in, calm but firm, and asked, "Is there a problem here?" My voice was steady, but my heart was racing. Rick turned around, startled. No. Just a little miscommunication." I looked at Megan. She was still wiping her eyes. Her shoulders were slumped, defeated. "She looks like she needs a break," I said. "Why don't you let her sit down for a few minutes?" Rick scoffed. "We're short-staffed. There's no time for breaks during the rush. I clenched my fists. There's always time to treat people with respect, I said, my voice sharp. The tension in the room thickened. Everyone was watching. I could feel their eyes on me. Even the cooks seemed to shrink back, avoiding the confrontation. Before Rick could say anything, one of the cooks, Connor, spoke up. He was a nervous young guy, but there was something quiet but firm about him. Megan's been nonstop since she clocked in. She hasn't even had time to get a drink of water. Rick shot him a glare, like he was scolding a child. Stay out of it, Connor. Focus on your station. I turned to Rick, and with a calmness that didn't match how I was feeling inside, I said, "And who's in charge of making sure your team can focus? Because from where I'm standing, it seems like the pressure is coming from how this place is being run." Rick went red. I could see his bravado start to crack. "I'm just doing my job," he muttered. "If people can't handle it, that's not on me." I wasn't having it. "We'll see about that," I said, not taking my eyes off him. I turned to Megan, who was still standing there, her hands trembling. "Take 5, I said gently. "You've earned it." Megan hesitated, looking at Rick, then back at me. She nodded and slipped past the swinging kitchen doors, relieved. I turned back to Rick. I wasn't done with him yet. "Rick, how long have you been the manager here?" I asked, my voice still calm. 2 years, he said, folding his arms. "I've kept this place running just fine." I raised an eyebrow. "You call this fine?" Rick's face turned pale, then flushed a deep red. He tried to hide it, but I could tell he was rattled. "I don't tolerate that kind of behavior," I said. "And neither should you." Before he could argue, Megan returned, her face a little more composed, but still obviously drained. She went back to her work, but I could see the difference in her demeanor. It was like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. I finished my meal and asked for the check. Megan brought it over, apologizing again for the earlier incident. "No need to apologize," I said. "You're doing great." Her eyes flicked up, surprised. She gave me a small, genuine smile. As I walked out the door, I called my assistant. "Janet, clear my schedule for tomorrow. Give me everything we have on the staff at this location. I want to see their files, performance reviews, all of it." I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. The next morning, I returned to the diner. Same disguise, same routine. But this time, I wasn't just observing. I was ready to make changes. By the end of the day, I'd fired Rick. I hired Denise, a new manager with experience and empathy. I promised to update the staffing structure and improve conditions. And most importantly, I promoted Megan and Connor. Megan got a significant pay raise, and Connor, he was promoted to assistant manager. They deserved it. Things changed. Fast. Customers noticed the difference. The staff started to smile again. I'd forgotten what that felt like to care about the people who make it all happen, to actually listen to them. And I wasn't going to forget it again. So what do you think? What would you have done in my shoes? Let me know in the comments. I want to hear your thoughts. What's the balance between business and people? Is it ever too late to fix something broken? Let's talk about it.